the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, so sworn. And also we had previously discussed that there will be a time limit placed on the presentations of staff, the applicant, and members that are affected members or affected parties. That time limit in discussions seems to be 10 minutes. So you will have 10 minutes to make your initial presentation. There will be a period for cross-examination, and then there will be the ability to make a final closing statement, which will also be limited to 10 minutes. And if the board is okay with that, we'll move forward with that based on previous discussions.
We're good.
Okay, with that being said, then we can certainly move on to the first application. Mr. Chair.
Point of order on the Board of Adjustment agenda page, number 3, application 2033 seems accurate, but number 4, application 20-35 does not match the top of that application. That says 20-34. Then we have 20-48 does match, and then 20-50, which also matches, but the second one does not.
I believe the correct number is 20 for 20-34 is actually 20-35.
35. Thank you. Okay. So then we're going to move on to application number 20-33, variance to reduce the required side yard setback for a pool screen enclosure. So I'll call on the staff to present the report. You have 10 minutes.
Yes, this request is to reduce a minimum pool screen enclosure side lots line setback from 8 feet to 5 feet 10 inches, which is a 2-foot 2-inch variance for the construction of a pool screen enclosure on the side of an existing single-family residence. The applicant has indicated that the swimming pool and the pool enclosure cannot be located any closer to the existing residence because of the location of an underground power line on the property. The application package, and you should have a copy of the survey and site plan in your packet that illustrates what they're showing, what they're requesting rather. The section of the code is section 36.02, which states that pools and pool screen enclosures shall abide by the following minimum setbacks, and the report includes a table of setbacks. The one we're looking at is pool screen enclosure to side lot line. And the requirement is 8 feet or the district yard requirement, whichever is more permissive. In this case, it's 8 feet is the requirement in this district. If you refer to the survey that's in the packet, this is a corner lot. According to the information submitted by the applicant, there's an underground electrical line on the east side of the house that prevents the pool from being located any closer to the home. And the pool location in turn affects the location of the requested pool screen enclosure. I will go through the standards of review for variances of section 2015.02B. The first criteria deals with unique conditions. Our finding is the need for the variance is due to the location of an underground power line on the property. This condition does not apply generally to other properties located in the zoning district. The second criteria is that this condition was not self-created. The location of the underground power line was unknown by the applicant until construction of the pool. The third criteria is that literal enforcement of the code would deny the applicant reasonable use of the property or other structures, and the requested variance is the minimum variance necessary. Literal enforcement of the minimum pool screen enclosure side lot setback would not allow construction of the pool screen enclosure because of minimum setback requirements between the water's edge of the pool and the proposed enclosure. The requested variance is the minimum necessary to permit construction of the pool enclosure. The fourth criteria is granting of the variance will not confer any special privilege that is not allowed for other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. Our finding is that granting of the variance will allow the construction of a pool screen enclosure, which is a feature common with other properties in this area. And finally, the granting of the variance will not substantially diminish property values in the surrounding area. Our finding is that the granting of the variance for the minimum pool screen enclosure side lot setback would not be expected to significantly affect property values in the surrounding areas. This is a corner lot. There are no adjacent properties. There are no properties directly adjacent to the side lot setback line from which the variance is being requested. Based on our findings, staff is recommending approval of this variance, and I'd be glad to answer any of your questions.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board?
This is Jackie. I had a question. So, does this affect any sort of setback requirements for a fence? Don't know if this is also including a fence. If there's a fence planned, I would assume the property owner would probably be going in that direction at some point.
Yeah, the setback for a fence is different, so they would not be required to have a fence, a variance for a fence in this case. So
Okay,
it's just for the pool screen enclosure.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
And you did say that this power line was discovered when they were in the middle of constructing the pool?
Yes, it was a result of that, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Eisner?
So is this, the pool is not in, correct, at this point?
Yeah, I believe it's permitted but not constructed.
So are they in the middle of this construction now? Is the pool sitting there waiting to be done according to us giving the variance for the enclosure?
I'm not sure of the status of that, Pat. I don't know if Pat knows the answer, if this has been constructed or just permitted.
I believe what's happened is that the pool is constructed. When they went to permit the pool, that's when the electrical line placement was discovered. And because of whatever building code, electric code, they had to adjust the pool. And the applicant may be able to expand on this. They had to adjust the pool location to meet code. So this was something that they had to do because of an electric line that was apparently there before they bought the house, and they did not know the layout of the underground lines.
So my question still then is, why is it that we're going for a variance for the enclosure? Is this an afterthought?
Well, the pool can be constructed where it was permitted. It's the screen enclosure that requires the variance. And I think I'm not sure if it was contemplated when they permitted the pool, and perhaps the applicant can answer that. But at any rate, they can proceed with the pool construction, just not the screen enclosure without the variance.
Well, I'd like to know the answer to that because we've had situations before, and I'm not saying that's this one, where it's very convenient to put the pool as close to the street and into a corner as possible, and then ask for a variance afterwards.
Well, let's allow the applicant to speak
Yes.
to that, please.
I have no issues. Okay, thank you.
So how about that? How about George? You got anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, Jackie, anything else?
No.
So we're gonna move on to the applicant presentation. What do you got? We got him on the line here. Is the applicant present? Presentation.
Yes, we have Mr. Netwall. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Mr. Nutwall, are you present?
I'm looking at my computer here, yes.
Okay, I cannot see you, but I do need to swear you in before we begin. So I trust that you will have your right hand raised Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And you are muted, so you may wish to unmute yourself.
So help me God.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead with your presentation, sir.
Okay, we went to build the pool and we had a little problem with the Duke Energy. They said the power was there. They located the line. I had 911 Sunshine Locate come out several different times to mark the power lines. Once we started the pool, we found the power lines weren't exactly where they said they were, a little closer to where the pool is going to go. The pool by electric code has to be at least 5 feet away from an underground power line. So we had to shift the pool closer to the street on the one side. Then that put the screen enclosure a little bit closer to the street. The pool is finished. The homeowners have a 6-foot PVC fence, which was permitted by the city, around their property, closer to the road. So the pool screen enclosure obviously would be inside the screen enclosure. People wouldn't see it. It's unobtrusive. The homeowners actually really, Mr. Stanilakiotis is allergic to mosquitoes, and he can't use his pool without a screen enclosure. Hello?
Yeah.
Thank
Do
you.
you have anything? Does that complete your presentation, sir?
For now, I believe so, yes.
Okay, so we'll go to questions of the applicant. Mr. Eisen.
Well, my question still remains why this was not investigated, whether you can get a screen enclosure before you dug the pool.
We originally weren't going to have a screen, but then because of some of the mosquitoes that came out, it was necessary for the homeowners to have a screen enclosure on the pool. So we went to get the permit for the screen enclosure. We were denied because we were, 2 feet, 2 inches, too close to the street. So to get a final on the pool, final inspection, which we have, we put the 6-foot privacy fence around the pool.
I know this is difficult for you to do now. Do you have any documentation that would show that Duke Energy spoke to you about it being too close?
No, Duke didn't really say it's too close, but when we found the power line, we knew we had to be 5 feet away. We have to, when we build a pool, we have to get a no conflict letter from the power company. They gave us a no conflict letter and it wasn't exactly correct. Once we dug the pool, we found the power line was a little bit closer to where the pool was going to originally be. So we had to shift the pool away from the power line. You just can't have the electricity that close to the pool.
Right, I understand that. My question is more so, do you have any evidence that you would have brought to this board to show that there was issues between Duke Energy and your pool installation?
What type of evidence are you looking for? I don't know.
There's even a document that they said that the wire was too close to the pool, or that it's not up to me to bring evidence to the board. It's you to bring evidence to let us know that you were kind of stuck and there was nothing else you can do. To tell us that is good. I like hearing you saying that, but is there any evidence that you've had any interaction with Duke Energy and that you had to have this pool in this area?
Well, I have the no conflict from Duke Energy. Yes.
So then, sir, that no conflict, the original no conflict was did that denote where the location of the power line was upon their initial investigation of it, and then you start digging and realize, no, we thought it was here on that no conflict, but it actually ended up being here?
That's right. We had, we called Sunshine Services. They come out and they measure or actually locate all the utilities in the yard between the cable companies, gas companies, water, not water companies, but especially the power companies. That's the most important one. We thought the power was 5 feet off the house, but it turned out to be was longer or a little closer to the pool. So we had to adjust where the pool was located in the yard. And that's it.
Mr. Boris, you have a question?
Yes. When you had to move the pool, whether it was a foot and a half, whatever it was, to make the 5 feet away from the line, did you have to apply again for a permit or anything different that you had originally to build the pool?
No.
That's automatically done. You didn't need anything from the city for moving it X feet or whatever it was?
No, we did a couple other things though. We, during the course of construction, we were originally going to build a pool, and then the homeowners decided they wanted to add a hot tub, which we went back to the city to get a permit for.
So the city didn't require any change or updating to the permitting or the documentation with the city in shifting the pool over those couple feet and after you discovered the power line location?
No, I don't believe so.
Any more questions for the applicant?
Well, I still would like to have had some sort of documentation or a schematic to show where you thought the wire was and where the wire or electric lines, where it eventually you found it, and why you had to move it. I'm looking at a schematic that shows me where you finally put it, but I have no evidence in front of me that shows me that you had to move it because of measurements. So I'm in the quagmire.
He's been muted apparently, but he is on the road, Mr. Eisner. So I can't even ask, well, he was already finished with his presentation. So
you can ask him additional questions if you want to, Mr. Chair.
I'm fine. I'm ready to move on. Do we have any emails regarding this application? Is that a no?
No, I don't think so.
We didn't receive any.
So then we have to go to the affected parties. Do we have any of those? Or anyone who's raised their hand on the virtual machine here?
If anyone is an affected party, please raise your hand. We have one raised hand.
Well, let's do that.
And that would be Mr. Is it Buckco?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you are echoing a little bit, but I did want to first inquire as to your affected party status. You are claiming that you are an affected party to this application, is that correct?
For application 2050, yes.
For 2050? Okay, we are presently on application 2033, so you are not claiming you're an affected party to 2033, is that correct?
No, I'm not.
Okay, then at this time we will place you back into the attendees section instead of the panelist section, and until we call that application. But are there any affected parties for application 2033?
We have one hand raised.
Okay, and I have you listed as Billy T. Mr. Billy T, are you claiming to be an affected party to this application? You are presently muted.
No, I'm sorry. I pressed the button by accident.
Oh, not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no other raised hands.
So where do you go?
So there are no affected parties to this application then.
Okay, then.
Did we lose our caller?
No?
Okay.
The general public now. We go to the general public that would wish to comment on this application. Please raise your hand, however that's done.
We have no raised hands at this time.
So I guess we're going to close the public comment. Call on the applicant for any rebuttal or any final comment. Mr. Netwall, are you there?
Yes, I am. My only final comment is that the screen enclosure is going to protect and allow my customers, the homeowners, to enjoy their pool safely. And there is a 6-foot PVC privacy fence around the pool, so nobody can see the screen, just the very top of it. And it's not hurting anything. And these are really nice people and good citizens of the community. And I appreciate your consideration in this, and I hope everything works out well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to board discussion.
I have a question for the city. As Mr. Netwall had said, they had called to have all the different power lines and everything marked, and then upon construction realized that the power line in question was not in the location which they were anticipated. Now, and then they proceeded with moving the pool location to accommodate the 5-foot separation. Is that a standard customary thing for someone to move that and not required to come back to the city for any permitting adjustment or inspection?
Yeah, my understanding is that the line was discovered during the design phase of it, so it hadn't gone to the city yet. So yeah, typically if the plan was submitted and then the line was discovered, the plan would have to be changed. But I don't think that was the case. I didn't get that from the conversations and my understanding of this. So I think it was just they had designed, he was designing it with his contractor, and they had laid it out, and then they discovered the location, and then the plans were changed. So it was not subject to city review until the plans were finalized.
So then to clarify, so the discovery of the true location was before dirt was broken?
That's my understanding, and perhaps the applicant, if he could answer that, but that's my understanding of this.
Well, I heard the applicant state that they changed it from the original.
My understanding was the original design. But in any case, that does present the unique circumstance that would support the variance request, that location of that line.
And when they did the planning, did they think of an enclosure of the pool, or it's an afterthought?
That would be a question that for the applicant.
Is he still connected?
He is. I believe the testimony that he gave was that because as they were digging, there was a lot of mosquitoes, and so the enclosure was designed after the pool. But Mr. Netwall would be able to speak to that if the chair wishes.
Yeah, Mr. Netwall, if you're still there, go ahead and give us your response, please.
Yeah, that is correct.
That is correct. Which part, sir?
Originally, there wasn't going to be a screen. Then because of the situation there, the homeowners decided they wanted to have the screen. They were concerned about the the bugs, basically the bugs, because, there's Zika mosquitoes and everything else, and as we know right now today, this is something that it's all about personal safety and allowing to them to enjoy the pool that they have and the property that they have.
So, Mr. Neville, would the screened enclosure, if it had been added to the original plan, would that have fit within would you have needed a variance for that?
Probably not.
So it only arose out of the fact you had to move it
Yes, sir.
due to the wire.
Yeah, due to the wire and the fact that when they came out to mark everything, they weren't exactly correct.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions of anybody, the staff or this man, or would you like to discuss amongst ourselves?
Well, my only comment I could make is I would like to have seen where the wire was, where this power line is, but I can't.
Go ahead, Mr. Burris, you have something to say? George?
No, I don't have any further questions. I'm sorry.
Jackie?
I'm good.
Yeah, my only comment is, the man is under oath. It's competent, substantial evidence. He's a pool guy. I take his word for it. You guys do what you want to do. We're going to go for a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion a second.
We have a second. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Miss Rich,
Approve.
Mr. Eisner,
Approve.
I didn't get to catch that.
Approve.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Miss Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Rabowski.
Yes. Okay. Up to you, sir. So the next application we decided was 35. Application number 20-35, Duke Energy of Florida, Inc. Variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback.
Yes, this is for, to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 25 feet to 12 feet for the construction of a 3,282 square foot building to accommodate the expansion of an electrical substation on the site. The applicant has indicated that an existing building on the site is being demolished and replaced with the proposed control building at a different location on the site to accommodate the needed expansion of the substation. The property is located on the east side of US 19, approximately 300 feet north of Tarpon Avenue. The property does sit between Cemetery Road on the east and US 19 on the west. So the front is actually Cemetery Road. The rear yard is on 19. So the rear yard, the variance request is for the US 19 frontage, which is the rear yard. Going through the criteria, the first criteria for granting a variance, the first is unique condition. The unique condition in this case is that the proposed building is needed to allow expansion of a substation to accommodate electrical demand. The variance is necessary to meet separation requirements of the National Electric Safety Code and to allow the building to be located within the existing perimeter fence and to maintain safe employee access to the proposed controlled building. These conditions do not apply generally to other properties located in the zoning district. The second condition is the unique condition is not self-created. Our analysis of this is that the condition described, the conditions that we discussed are not self-created and they're not the result of actions by the applicant. The third criteria is that literal enforcement would deny the applicant reasonable use of the property or of legally conforming buildings. Our finding is that the literal enforcement of the minimum rear yard setback would not allow the expansion of a major electrical substation that is needed to accommodate electrical demand. The requested variance is the minimum necessary to permit construction of the proposed controlled building. Fourth criteria is a granting of the variance will not confer any special privilege that is not allowed for and other lands, buildings, or structured in the same zoning district. Our finding is a granting of the variance request will allow the construction of a building that is required to accommodate the needed expansion of a major electrical substation. The variance will not confer any special privilege that is not allowed for other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. And the final criteria is a granting of the variance will not substantially diminish property rights or property values in the surrounding area, or substantially interfere with or injure the rights of other properties. Our finding is that the rear of the subject property faces US 19 in an area that's already developed with intense commercial uses. As you probably know, the site is a very large substation that includes a major communications tower on the property. So the granting of the variance is not expected to have significant impacts to surrounding properties. The variance for the minimum rear yard setback is not expected to affect properties. Based on our findings in this report, staff is recommending approval of the variance.
Are there any questions of the city?
I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, George.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jackie.
Oh, thank you,
Jackie,
sir.
go.
So there was an email between the city and the applicant saying that it was a 12-foot variance, but the application says 13.1 feet. So what are we deciding on tonight?
The request, as clarified by the applicant after the initial application, is for 12 feet. So the requested variance is for 12 feet, 25 feet to 12 feet. And I think it's based on just, additional information that was uncovered during the planning phase of this, the design of it. And the applicant can probably answer that, but yeah, the request is for 12 feet.
Thank you.
The question that I had was, any problems with US 19 as far as easements? How far away from a major highway and all that?
There are no easements that this would affect. And it is just the only thing we're dealing with is the rear yard setback. So we don't see a conflict with any, site visibility triangles or anything like that. It's just the setbacks.
What about DOT?
DOT just goes along with the city's standard rear setbacks on this. So again, it's not within the right of way. It would be 12 feet from the right of way. So there is not a conflict with DOT.
And Louis, perhaps the applicant could better explain this, but I'm going to give you a shot at it. I mean, the conditions described above are not self-created and are not the result of the actions by the applicant. They're expanding, so it is 100% self-created. How is it not?
Well, our finding in regard to that is that, yes, the expansion is required to use that substation. It's needed to address additional demand, but the requirements for safe employee access and meeting the National Electrical Safety Code and the requirements for a security fence, those are all conditions that were not created by the applicant. So that's the basis of our finding.
Thank you. Any other questions of the city staff? Okay, we're going to go to the applicant. Is the applicant present?
If you would please raise your hand, we'll be able to bring you in.
Okay, Ms. Hadaway, I cannot see you, but if you would please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Ms. Hadaway. You may have your presentation.
Thank you. And I believe I had an exhibit, if it would be possible to put that on the screen for the board members to see. Thank you. Thank you so much. And good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members and staff members. I'm Kathy Hadaway with Polis and Bennett. representing Duke Energy's application for a setback variance associated with the expansion of the Tarpon Springs substation. The expansion of this substation is necessary to both respond to the growing demand for electrical service in the Tarpon Springs area and also to provide increased reliability in the provision of service to Duke Energy's existing customers. The exhibit that you see on your screen is a simplified version of the substation expansion plan, and it specifically calls out the location of the control equipment enclosure, or the CEE building, located in the southeast corner of the drawing. It's the square or the rectangle that's in yellow. Perfect. And again, our request is to allow for a 12-foot setback from the US 19 right-of-way for this building. The reduced setback is necessary to accommodate minimum separation requirements of the National Electrical Safety Code for substation components, and also to maintain safe employee access to this control building. It is important to note that the CEE building will be constructed flush with the perimeter security fence of the facility and will connect to the fence. In other words, no portion of the expanded substation, including this building, will extend beyond the fence line that is on the property today. So there will be no encroachment past the fence line that you see on the property today. We thank you for your consideration of our request. We also have subject matter experts that are on this call who will be able to answer any questions that I'm not able to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne.
I do have a question. Just, I'm not familiar with substations in general, but you mentioned the safety regulations. How often are those regulations updated? And I'm asking that because if, like right now, it's meeting the maximum separation, if those regulations changed to require a broader regulation, is that component of a substation sometimes moved to meet that requirement if the regulations change?
That would certainly depend on the individual regulations, but Duke Energy remains very actively involved in any requirement changes for their substations. And if any requirement or change to the facility it would be mandated by a change, then they would ensure that that took place.
Any other questions?
I have a question, yes. Is the entrance from US 19 new or it's existing there?
There is an existing access on US 19 that, as is shown on the plan, there's a deceleration lane that is quite lengthy. That is already provided onto the site today. However, in the future, once the expansion is complete, we expect that the majority of traffic will enter from Cemetery Road. And when I say the majority of traffic, we're talking about probably 2 to 3 trips per month. This is not a manned facility. The only access to the site on a regular basis is for maintenance activities.
Thank you.
This is Jackie. The CEE building, this is the substation that we're talking about. You know, like Ms. Rich said, we're not terribly well versed in, you know, the substations here. This is the building that's being constructed. All the other is existing structures.
So yes and no. They're on the facility today. If you you'll notice on this site, you'll probably have realized by now that the site plan is turned on its side. So north is actually to the left and south is to the right, because of the way that the roads are running north. Roads actually run north and south. So on the facility today, on this property, is an electrical substation, but there is also office buildings on the site today. This, so the facility will be completely renovated and upgraded and expanded. So the office building would go away and the expanded electrical facilities will take over the rest of the site. This CEE, there is a CEE building on the site today, but because of the expansion of the facilities, that existing CEE building will be removed and the new one would be placed in the locations shown on the site plan.
So the one that is being removed is on the same physical space?
It's on the same physical parcel today, it's just farther north.
Okay. And what's the height of this? How many stories or?
The height of the building, I am not specific on the height. I know it's just a single story facility. It's not, it does not have multiple levels. So it is a 1-story building, approximately 3,200 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Eisner.
Yes, thank you. This is Mike Eisner speaking. What is usually put in this building? What is stored in the building, or what is the purpose actually of this CEE building?
Certainly. The building is primarily communication facilities that facilitate the way that the substation communicates with other substations, with other Duke Energy facilities. So it's exactly what it you could imagine. It's just a lot of communication equipment and electrical components within it.
Was there any, I'm asking this obvious question, was there any thought to keeping this so close to 19 that it could be in harm's way by it being so close to 19?
We did have careful discussion of that. It's typical that the CE building is on the perimeter of a site for access and for distance requirements. So being located where it is, which would be, again, no closer to 19 than any of the fencing, perimeter fencing on the site today, was deemed to be an appropriate location.
So when you say this does communication, give me some idea of what magnitude of communication. Is it for all of Tarpon Springs? Is it for Tarpon Springs and Palm Harbor? What would this be?
Sure, this facility actually it supplies service and serves customers outside of the Tarpon Springs, the city of Tarpon Springs. It is a facility that connects through lines to other facilities and includes other areas within the county.
Where was it before this, or should I say, where is it presently now?
It's more located on the northern half of the site, which is where the existing facilities, the existing electrical facilities are today, while today on the more southern part of the site is an office building. So as I indicated, all of the electrical facilities as in this upgrade and renovation will expand to the south.
So the building that's sitting right now presently to the north of the CE building, the proposed site, is that running along 19 at what is showing in this diagram?
It is not in the exact location, but it is very close. It was just because of all of the various components of the substation that have to be fit into this, within this fenced area. It was, and to provide that separation requirement, it did kind of push the building a little bit closer to the perimeter of the parcel than the building on the existing site.
So the proposed site, the large particular area that I'm looking at that's north of it, will be within the setback variance off of 19, and this will not. So this will protrude out.
It will, well, it will not protrude outside of the fence.
Right,
It will be closer, it will be, the structure will be closer to the fence line than the existing, but it will not protrude outside of the fence line.
What is south of this diagram?
I believe there is a cemetery south of the property, and there's nothing north of the property. So there's, I think there's also a gas station.
It's east of the property, the
Yeah.
cemetery.
The cemetery's east of. See, I'm
Yeah.
asking you what's south of it because I know there's a gas station. I believe it to be
Shell.
Exxon or Shell. And my concern is that's on a very steep hill coming out of that particular gas station. And very easily, cars approaching 19, if you're coming out of that gas station and a car coming north on 19 were to have a collision between the two cars, it would definitely hit this particular spot and put down a lot of the communication that you're proposing to put there.
Well, there's at least 40 feet from the edge of the pavement to the fence location. So there is more space than you might think from our conversation that would separate any vehicles from that potential. There's also, I'm not sure if all of you are completely familiar with this particular stretch of US 19. There is a guardrail that is adjacent to the roadway that separates the sidewalk from the roadway. So there is additional safety measure between any cars that would be on the road and this area.
Okay.
Do you have any more, Mr. Eisner?
No, I was just looking for a response to that, and I like the response that came back with the guardrail.
Thank you. So, Ms. Hathaway.
Yes, sir.
You heard my question to the city that the conditions described are not self-created and are not the result of the actions by the applicant. We have a review criteria for variance, and we have to meet each condition. It seems to me that this is self-created, and therefore I was wanting to ask you what efforts were made to keep it within either the footprint and or within the required rear yard setback rules of Tarpon.
Certainly, and I absolutely understand that question, and I can tell you that with the expansion of the facility and the need to expand the facility and upgrade it, just a number of items go into the consideration and the design of that site. For example, this site has facilities on it that are almost 30 years old. Obviously, technology has changed since that time. Design of electrical facilities and substations has changed since that time. So I always think of these substations as almost a puzzle, a three-dimensional puzzle that one has to put together to fit all of the pieces that are necessary to actually create this substation and have it function as it is intended to function, and fit them within a parcel of land and within those particular setbacks. We just, it was found in this case in conversation with the project engineer and others that in order to, again, get all the pieces of the puzzle within the parcel and set them or locate them in the areas where they have to be located with the distance requirements that have to be made between the various components of the site. Unfortunately, it was determined that this particular one component of that entire site would require a request for a narrower setback.
Right, and I appreciate that there are complexities here that I may be missing. However, I mean, we're talking about almost 5 acres of land. How much percentage of the acreage of land is currently being occupied?
It's currently being occupied. A little more than one half of the site is the is the current substation facility. As I mentioned, there's office buildings on the south side, or an office building on the south side. So again, the office building will be removed, and instead of, well, it was a decision that Duke Energy made. Instead of looking for a second location and having 2 separate substations, it made a lot more sense in terms of efficiencies to just expand onto this existing site.
So you're saying that they're reserving the 2.5 acres of land for some other expansion on this land, since they're not using it, and could potentially move this parcel to that?
No, let me clarify my answer. The site today is approximately almost 1.8, close to 2 acres of that site is substation facility. There is also an office building on it and parking. The plan is to expand the substation facility to take up the entire site. So there will not be any leftover land. The entire site will be substation facilities and components. And there should be a site plan. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, there should be a site plan in your application package that provides some additional detail. I just provided this simplified plan tonight, or just for purposes of this conversation, but there's a site plan, I believe, in the package that shows more details of those facilities that will be on that as part of that expansion.
So you're saying after this expansion, you will have to move on and find another location if you expand further?
This particular site will be maxed out, yes.
Are there any more questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have a question. Since this is going to be maxed out fence to fence, are you planning to put any trees, any shrubs, any kind, anything? Or are you just going to be electrical components and whatever else you're putting there?
There is fairly significant landscaping on the property today along the US 19 area, and some of that landscaping, I don't know exactly how much, but some of that landscaping will remain.
That's within your property or US 19's property?
Probably both. There's probably some of it is probably landscaping for the roadway, but there is definitely some landscaping on the site, and we would be happy to work with staff through the permitting process if it's required to have any additional landscaping on that site.
In other words, on Cemetery Road, you have landscaping, is that what you're telling us?
I don't recall the amount of landscaping that's on Cemetery Road, but I know the majority that I'm aware of is on 19, the 19 side.
Okay, and it's part of your site or part of 19?
On both.
On both, okay. Has the city any requirement on a property this size to have any particular square footage of any shrubs, of any trees or anything like that?
Is that staff?
Staff, yes. Erica, you may know.
Well, honestly, my comment was going to be, I'm not really sure what this has to do with the variance criteria. So if you could fill me in onto what criteria this is related to, I'd be happy to have staff answer that question.
Well, my question pertains to the 12 feet that I want to bring it down to from 25. Are they planning to do anything on that?
As far as like a landscape buffering, because I believe the testimony is that it will be flush with the fence line that's already there. But if that's the case, staff can certainly, if they can, answer the landscape buffering question.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that staff will look at as a part of the normal permitting process for that control building. This is an existing facility, so we're obviously not going to require landscaping of the entire site, but for that building, we can look at that during the permitting process.
Okay. I have no more questions.
Any more questions from the, well, Mr. Eisen?
If we reject this variance, what would be your next proposal to do?
Well, I believe your code would allow us to appeal the denial, and that would be our next step, because we have exhausted the design options on this site in putting in the facilities that are planned and considered necessary for this site. And as I mentioned, unfortunately, came to the conclusion that it was necessary to request this variance.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess my next thing would be just when we have our discussion on our criteria.
Right, understood. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Do you have anything in closing?
No, we would go to the affected part, or the emails first and then the affected parties.
Yes. Do we have any emails? Ken?
No.
No complaints from the neighbors in the cemetery?
I don't think they mind.
Was the gas station notified?
I believe they're within the 500 feet, so yes, they should have been notified.
Then we go to affected parties. Are there any online? Raise your hand, however that is accomplished.
We do not have any raised hands at this time.
Thank you. Then we go on to the general public wishing to comment. Raise your hand.
And we have no raised hands at this time.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. So then we are going to close public comment. Applicant, do you have anything else to say?
No, Mr. Chairman, if any other questions come up, as I said, we do have subject matter experts that could answer those questions if I'm not able to. We appreciate your time and consideration tonight.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move to board discussion.
I have a question. I have a question for the city. If it was a regular building, would you have had the site plan with shrubs, trees, and everything else presented?
Well, we're not reviewing this at this time as a site plan. Normally, a site plan would include all those items. So for the variance, we're just looking at the location of the building, the footprint as they provided.
Will they have enough then on the remaining 12 feet to do anything like that? Will there be any restrictions?
Well, we've looked at the footprint they provided, and we believe they can permit that within the city's requirements other than the setback.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Is that me?
Mr. Eisner, what do you got?
Well, when I reviewed this from the onset, it does not fit our number 1 criteria. It did not fit our number 2 criteria. It did not fit our 3 criteria, and it did not fit our 4 criteria. The only one it fit actually was criteria 5. So I'm kind of stuck on not knowing how to proceed, or I should say I do know how I have to proceed. Just the fact that we are kind of held to the four failures to meet our criteria.
Right, I tend to agree with you, sir. Do we have any other comment? Jackie Turner?
I understand, what Mr. Eisner's saying, that if we go with literal enforcement, we have an interesting situation.
Yes, it seems to me that if this were a regular homeowner, they would be forced to build within their own footprint. With 5 acres of land, there would be a way to either do that or move the puzzle pieces around in such a way that they didn't encroach and wouldn't require a setback. So if we're to apply the law evenly, equally to all residents, businesses, and so on, then we would have to hold them to account because they do not meet the requirements. We can't consider costs, right? So if they're saying that it's because it would cost them more money, she said efficient, right? That it was efficient reason to do it rather than find another site. But I suspect that that had to do with cost. It would cost them money and time to find another site to do their expansion. So that is my suspicion.
But then we also know that, considering the applicant, that cost impacts our residents.
Can't consider that at all.
I tend to agree with the staffing's interpretation. As I understand and read the documents, it's not Duke Electric's requirement that is causing this need for the setback. It's the regulatory body's configuration. And that's why I was asking about the regulatory bodies, how often those changed and if that would require a new. So I can see where the staff would say this wasn't caused by them themselves. But I would like to hear further from the staff if I'm interpreting that the way that you were interpreting.
Yes, and that was, I was going to jump in and add that this is a fairly unique use. An electrical substation has a lot of restrictions as to how they can operate safely. The applicant's first choice is, of course, always to make it fit on the property. And that's how they're always advised by staff, is to make it work, make it fit. So we're not electrical experts, but we are taking the applicant at their word based on their expertise that there is no way to meet the requirements for safety, the requirements for preventing access, and the requirements to safely operate the substation without the variance. So that's sort of a unique situation, the unique conditions that we looked at when we did our review of the criteria. So it's a little different than a standard building. And again, we always do advise the applicants to look for a way to make it fit on the site. It is a large site, but at the same time, I believe that with all that's on the property, there are some restrictions that would definitely prohibit putting the building elsewhere. So that's the reason we're supporting the variance request.
I'd like to make a point along those lines. If we look at the last plan that they have, the last page, they have all this complex equipment here that east to west, they're practically on the fence. So they might need this space because of the type of equipment they put in there. And we have no expertise on that to say otherwise.
That would be correct, George.
So I think we're limited to our knowledge as far as what they need exactly. And we're talking about 13 inches, 13 feet, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
and the site plan, there is a detailed plan in there, and it does show that the site is pretty built out. It's pretty packed
Yes.
with equipment.
Yes, I think that's the main point that you're looking as a city also, and what Joanne is talking about.
Good
Anyone
points,
else?
Mr. Burris.
Any more comments or questions from the board?
Tough decision.
Yes, sir. I mean, if we're gonna go by the letter, we would not be able to grant this application.
Well, in my opinion, since this is kind of, as Mr. Boris said earlier, there are diagrams and specifications that are way above my pay scale. And that's why I asked the question, what would happen if we do not approve this variance? And it would go then above us to the next decision-making, probably the commissioners.
It would go to
Actually,
the
sir, it
circuit
goes to the
court.
courts.
Go to the court,
The circuit court.
circuit court.
And the courts, I'm sorry. But it's very hard for me to not do my job and see that it doesn't fit any one of the variances. Well, I should say, let me rephrase that. The first four, the fifth one is fine.
Well, if there's no more commentary, then we're gonna go for a motion. Anybody have any more to add?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Ms. Rich,
Approve.
Mr. Eisner,
No.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Ms. Turner,
Approve.
Mr. Urbanski,
No. I believe I missed one in there. What was the count?
3-2, yes.
Okay. Moving on. We've got application 20-48, Guy H. Baines and Stephanie Goodman, variance to reduce the rear yard setback. City, please give their presentation.
Yes, this is a request to reduce the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 26 feet, 4-foot variance for the construction of a 12-foot by 15-foot addition to an existing single-family residence. The applicant had originally considered constructing this addition to the front of the house. However, because of the potential for flooding due to the slope of the property downward from the road and the drainage design necessary to accommodate that, the applicant could not, the addition to the front was not feasible. So the applicant has proposed putting this on the rear of the house. The proposed addition on the rear of the house will not extend beyond an existing covered porch that already encroaches into the setback that was constructed in the 1970s. And again, there is a survey showing the location of the existing structures and the proposed additions. This property is located at 1711 Avoca Drive, and it is zoned single-family residential R100. Based on the, we've reviewed this for compliance with the criteria of section 2015.02B, and our findings are as follows. In regard to unique conditions, our finding is that the unique condition in this case is the slope of the property downward towards the house. The addition to the front of the house would not be feasible because of that. This is a condition that does not apply generally to other properties located in the zoning district. The second criteria, the condition was not self-created. Our finding is that this is not, the slope of the property is not the result of actions by the applicant. The third criteria is that literal enforcement would deny the applicant reasonable use of the property or legally conforming buildings or structures. Literal enforcement of this minimum rear yard setback would prevent the construction of a 12-foot by 15-foot addition. This addition could have been constructed in the front of the residence if the unique condition, as we discussed, was not present. The proposed addition is something that is commonly enjoyed by other properties in the area, and they are not proposing to extend this addition in the rear beyond the existing covered porch on the site. The fourth criteria is that the granting of the variance will not confer any special privilege to the applicant. The granting of the variance request will allow the construction of an addition that on a typical lot in this zoning district could be accommodated in the front of the existing house. But as we discussed, because of the unique situation with the drainage, it is required to be built in the rear of the house. The fifth criteria is a granting of the variance will not substantially diminish property values. The proposed addition that would be permitted by granting of the 4-foot rear yard setback variance will not extend beyond the rear of the existing covered porch. Therefore, the granting of the variance is not expected to significantly affect property values in the surrounding areas, nor substantially affect adjacent properties. Based on these findings,
We lost you, Louis, for the last part of your statement.
okay, yeah, we're recommending approval of this based on our review of the criteria.
Any questions of the staff?
Did we receive any communication from neighbors, particularly the rear neighbors?
No.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, we did not.
Right.
Do they currently have a permit of working on a house now?
No, they do not. They're requesting the variance before they apply for the permit for the addition.
So there's no current permit now?
That's right. Yeah, that's standard. The variance request is needed, so there's no sense in going forward with the permit at this time. And it could not be granted until the variance was finalized.
I just mean in general, is there a permit, not just for this?
Oh, for the existing house?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was permitted. That house has been there since the 70s. So yeah, that was a legally permitted house. And as far as the addition that encroaches, or the porch that encroaches, that was permitted as well.
What I'm referring to is an ongoing permit right now.
No, there's not an ongoing permit.
Thank you.
Boris, do you have any questions for the staff?
No, I don't have any questions now.
Joanne? Okay, so we are going to allow the applicant to present their project. Do we have the applicant?
Yes, 1 second.
Yes, good evening. This is Guy Danes.
And Mr. Danes, I cannot see you, but if you could, on your honor, raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you
Yes.
swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, you may give your presentation. Thank you.
Yes, just like he mentioned, we actually were looking to add the addition on the front of the house, but due to the design in our lot, the house is below the road. And then there's a swale coming down and then back up to the house to where if we went any farther forward, we actually stop the flow of water that drains, through the yard into the back of the property. And then also it would allow water to encroach into the addition. So yeah, our only choice was to actually go to the back. And like I said, we have an existing porch there from the 70s. And we just want to basically, move the addition and close that in and it wouldn't go any further than the existing porch.
Do you have
Any questions for me?
Well, we're gonna go to
I have questions.
emails.
Sure.
Hang on.
I had questions.
We're gonna, Mr. Reiser, I believe the procedure that we're now following is we move on to emails from the public.
Okay.
There are no emails from the public.
No emails. Okay, affected parties, raise your hand. What do we got, Mark?
We have no raised hands at this time.
Any members of the general public wishing to comment, raise your hand.
Again, we have no raised hands at this time.
Okay, ask your question, Mr. Eisner.
Thank you. So, Mr. Daines,
Yes.
Do you have any work being done on your house now?
No, we needed the variance before we apply for the permit for the addition.
So right now, there was no work being done at the house. I'm not talking about for this, for anything.
No, I mean, just normal little painting and things like that.
Anyone else? Question for the applicant.
Say again?
Does anyone else have a question for the applicant? Seeing none.
Well, I still had a question with,
Well, go ahead.
how much difference in height if you were to put this structure in the front of the house?
In height, I guess if you look at the survey, I think it's 15 and a half at the road, and then it drops down to 14 in the about a middle of the driveway, and then the front of the garage is back to, I think, 15 even. So
Right.
it's like almost 16 up at the thing. So what happens is when the water comes down, it actually, so instead of encroaching into the house, it actually, because the middle of the driveway is lower, it actually allows water to, it's like a swale that allows it to go to the side and then around this house to the back, which is a lot lower. And, when we asked the contractor, I have a letter, email from the contractor. I'm not sure if it's in your paperwork. He was saying I basically would be stopping that swale by building forward, because then I'm encroaching into the swale and it won't allow the water to drain through the property and around to the back.
Yes, but you could put a flange there, is my question, and still make that go around both sides, because right now, isn't your property lower than the crown of the road?
Yes, it is.
So
and then the driveway is even lower, that allows the water to, so it doesn't come into the house. It actually allows it to come around through the yard, through the swale. And he was saying, pretty much I'm reading his thing, the current driveway has a swale that allows the water to drain easterly. If the home was extended forward towards the road, it would affect the swale and the driveway and the drainage on the lot. If the home was extended to the front, it would likely result in water intrusion into the front room addition.
See, what I'm explaining to you is this. There are homes on Riverside Drive, right around the corner from you, that drop down probably from the roadway to the driveway 6, 7, 8 feet. And I'm sure with the heavy rains we have here in Florida, this water comes down like a waterfall, and for some reason they're not flooding. So like I said, there are many homes that are a lot lower than yours by footage, and they don't get flooded. So it's kind of hard for me to follow this.
If I may, Mr. Eisner, I see what you're saying. And actually I live on a street off of Riverside. And there is, thankfully, it's just garage, but I actually just last week had flooding because of the unique slope of a certain part of my property. So like when I remember when I was reading this, I'm like, I could picture it because I kind of live in something like this.
Can I add a point? At the road, the elevation is 15 feet and change. As you're getting closer to the front of the house, it drops down to 14. And then at the corner of the house, right below where it says lot 9, it's about 13 feet. So he has a point that this thing is dropping by 2 feet, not by 6 inches. So by dropping 2 feet, it makes sense that to put a structure in front of the house, it will be counterproductive.
Mr. Dane, anything to say in closing?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm just, I'm trying to go the route that the contractor, kind of advised me. We wanted to go out the front, but that was the whole issue when he started looking at it. So, and then the back, we're not going past our existing porch, and it actually flows with the house very nicely and everything. So.
Okay, thank you, sir. I guess we're gonna move on. Any more board discussion, or are we ready for a motion?
I had a question of Erica.
Sir?
If I was by this house, would I be able to bring up anything that I viewed that would be?
No, you can make a site visit, though we don't recommend it. However, anything that you discuss with the board as far as the site visit is concerned is not to be considered because you cannot give evidence as a member of the board. It would be like the judge testifying at a trial and then making a decision.
No further discussion, then we'll move for a motion. What do we got? Ready?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Miss Rich,
Approve.
Mr. Eisner,
No.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Miss Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Urbowski.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Dane. Good luck.
Thank you.
We're moving on now. Application 20-50, Joseph Buchso. Sorry, sir. Variance to construct a bathhouse larger than 200 square feet and to reduce the side yard setback. Staff.
Yes, the applicant is requesting to construct a bathhouse larger than 200 square feet. 416.5 square feet is what's proposed, and to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 5 feet to 2.8 feet, which is a 2.2 foot variance. The applicant has indicated that the variance requests are necessary because the location of the septic system and the slope of the property prevent locating the bathhouse at least 5 feet away from the side lot line. This is a variance to section 36.01A, which states storage structures, outdoor shelters, sheds, bathhouses, and similar structures shall not exceed 200 square feet in a residential district or 300 feet in a non-residential district. No such structure shall be located closer than 5 feet from the side lot line or 5 feet from a rear lot line. In regard to the criteria for granting variances of section 2015.02B, the first criteria regarding unique condition, our finding is that the applicant has indicated that the unique condition with the site is the location of the septic system and the slope of the property which prevent locating the proposed bathhouse at least 5 feet away from the side property line. The applicant, however, has not provided a justification for requesting that the bathhouse exceed the 200 square foot maximum of section 36.01A of the Land Development Code. In regard to the second criteria, that the condition is not self-created, the location of the septic system on and the slope of the property are not the results of actions by the applicant. The third criteria regarding literal enforcement of the code, denying the applicant reasonable use of the property or illegally conforming buildings. Our finding is that the literal enforcement of the bathhouse maximum square footage and minimum side yard setback would not deny the applicant reasonable use of the property or structures. The applicant has not demonstrated the need to build a bathhouse that exceeds the 200 square foot maximum. And if you reduce the size of the bathhouse, the minimum side yard setback could be met. Fourth criteria, granting of the variance will not confer any special privilege that is not allowed for other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. Our finding is that the granting of the variance request would permit the construction of a bathhouse that exceeds the maximum allowed in all residential zoning districts. Number 5, the granting of the variance will not substantially diminish property values or substantially interfere with or injure the property rights of others. Our finding is that the granting of the variance would allow the construction of a bathhouse that exceeds the maximum allowable square footage by 216.5 square feet. And the bathhouse would be located within 2.8 feet of an adjacent property. A structure of this size and at this location could adversely affect the adjacent properties, particularly the property that is immediately east of this site. So based on these findings, our recommendation is for denial of this variance request.
Thank you, Louis. Question of the staff from the board.
I have a question for you, Louis.
Yes.
On this schematic, is the proposal the building that says building on it? In where it says part of 61, part of lot 61?
Yes, I'm pulling that up right now. Okay, yeah, I'm there.
Okay, so is that it? That's what the proposal is?
Yeah, the one that says building, yes.
So if they move that more in, not closer to the septic tank, that would still be, I didn't follow 100% what variance he's looking for, a setback from the back or a setback from the side?
The setback from the side where it says 2.8, he's going closer than 5 feet from that line. He is 5 feet from the rear property line. So yeah, I think the applicant indicated that it could not be moved to the other direction to the west because of the slope of the property.
What was the slope of the property?
It's not indicated, so yeah, we're just going by what the applicant indicated.
Okay.
On the application. We don't have a topographic survey.
Got it. Because we have nothing here. I have no facts or figures again in front of me as well.
Yeah, and that's probably a good question for the applicant about the slope.
Sure. Okay, then I don't have any further questions of staff.
Anyone else? Mr. Burks.
Yes. Will there be a problem if you move the building towards the west side of the property or the center of the property?
Yeah, I'll let the applicant answer that. He indicated because of the slope of the property, and you can see on the drawing where the septic tank is located. But yeah, you would think there's available land to the west, to the center.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a good question for the applicant.
Okay, on the rear setback, you have 5.5 feet. You're
Yes.
okay with that?
Yes, 5 feet is a minimum
Okay, that's
for a bathhouse.
okay. Then for the applicant, could you tell us why you can move it towards the center of the property or west?
Yeah, we're not up to that yet, I believe.
Is that? You just made his presentation. I think he's available, no?
The city presented.
The city presented, yes. Yeah, we haven't heard from the applicant. He's on the line, or he was.
He's on, but he hasn't sworn in or anything.
Right. So do we have any other questions of the city staff yet? Or should we move on? Okay. So now we're going to move on. Pardon me. So we're going to go for the applicant. Give your presentation, sir.
And Mr. Buxco, before we begin, I'd just like to swear you in before your presentation.
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes, you're echoing though.
Better?
Yes, much better. Will both of you be speaking? It sounds like there were two people.
One moment, I just lost part of them.
Okay.
Joseph, do you hear us?
You're gonna have to do it again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I cannot
Okay.
see you, so I'm going to trust that you're raising your right hand, but do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may go ahead and give your presentation.
Thank you. So I'm not sure, this thing seems to be, have gotten awfully confused, and I recall being, kind of specific, so I don't know where that came from, but everything listed in the staff report from the staff report to the description written on the sign in my front yard is totally confusing. The sign says that we are requesting a variance to increase the maximum floor area for an accessory structure. And that's not what we're trying to do at all. And we're also not trying to move the structure. All I want to do is add plumbing and to an existing structure to use it as a bathhouse. And the reason for the variance is because there is the existing building exceeds the 200 square foot, limit. So we don't need a side yard setback because we will not be changing that. We're not looking to add to the structure. We're only looking to add plumbing to a bathhouse inside of an existing building that exceeds the square foot for a bathhouse. That is the sole and only reason for the variance. It does not seem sensible to tear down half of the building in order to meet the square footage allowed. That's why we are asking for the variance. In addition, between the house and the building would be the only place that I would be able to build a new bathhouse because everything else is occupied with trees, and then we wouldn't be able to build there either because we've learned that our septic and leach field is all through there. We are willing and looking to keep the bathhouse portion of the structure that's there under the 200 square feet that's allowed, and leave the rest of the structure like it is as unfinished storage space. In addition, I have a letter that supports me getting this variance that is signed by the two closest neighbors adjacent to my property. Basically, the whole neighborhood is in support of it. Most of the neighbors in my area don't have swimming pools, so we allow our neighbors to use our pool, almost like a community pool. So they too would like to see the bathroom go in. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, sir. We'll get back to you if we have questions for you. I would like to respond, but can you respond to this before we move on to public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, you were asking for a response?
Yes. You're saying that the information that we got was inaccurate, the sign was inaccurate. What's the story?
Yeah, I did misspeak. It is an existing structure that he wants to convert to a bathhouse. But the problem is it exceeds, it's the same variance. It would be the same variance request that it does exceed the minimum size for a bathhouse and the setback for a bathhouse or an accessory structure for that matter could not be met. Yeah, if you look at 36.01A on the first page of the staff report, if storage structures, outdoor shelters, sheds, bathhouses, and similar structures all have the same size and setback requirements.
But this is an existing structure. Do we know, was this properly permitted? How long has this structure been on the property?
Yeah, that would be a question for the applicant.
All right, let's open up the applicant again. Joseph, can you hear us?
Hello? Okay. Yeah, so the shed was there when we bought the house 2 years ago. It's been there for a number of years. According to the tax records, it was permitted. I don't remember what year, but I mean it's on there. There was a permit pulled for it.
So you're looking to add a toilet and sink?
Yeah.
But did you not just say that it would not exceed 200 feet?
The bathhouse, we're wanting to keep the bathhouse portion of the structure under 200 feet, but the building itself is 400 and something, like 416 or something like that square feet. But we will leave the rest of the building as unfinished storage space.
Go ahead. Do you have any more questions for this gentleman? And then we'll go to public comment after.
Well,
So
I'm
just to kind of make clear, it's like, so it's an existing 400 and some odd square foot shed, garage, storage building, and you're looking to add a bathroom.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Eisner?
So let me go back to Louis. If he was building this exact structure, we would need a variance, or if he was building a bathroom in this existing, he would still need the variance. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So do we know that this structure has been permitted without the proper setbacks now?
I don't know if it was properly permitted or if it was legally non-conforming. I don't know the status of that.
How do we find that out?
Yeah, I mean, we could look into that. We're concerned. I think our response is basically on the request to convert it to a bathhouse.
Any more questions?
So, yes, so if I understand it correctly, no matter what, whether you have an existing building or a house or anything, you need another bathroom. You have to get another permit. Is that correct?
Yes, it has to be permitted, and the addition of a bathroom changes the status of the existing building to a bathhouse.
I got it. Okay.
Joanne, you have any questions for either? Okay. So we're going to go on. Do we have any emails on this project? Kim?
No.
Okay. Any affected parties? Please raise your hand. What do we got, Mark?
We only have Mr. Boscos in the attendance.
Okay. And so no members of the general public either then?
No.
Okay.
I have another, if I may, I have another question for the city. So in reading what you have here for the code requirements, 36.01A, so storage structures, outdoor shelters, sheds, bathhouses, and similar structures shall not exceed 200 square feet. I mean, so we're talking like, that could be a detached garage. That seems rather small, and I'm kind of surprised because I think we have all seen in some frequency structures that would fit this definition that would be out of compliance. So looking to, so, you know, number one, we want to see, what was this permitted? What's the status of the existing structure? And he's looking to add plumbing to an existing structure.
Yeah, detached garages are actually addressed separately, 36.01B. But yeah, so it is considered either, it's not a detached garage, obviously. So we are using it as a storage structure, bathhouse, etc.
So it's not considered, it wouldn't be a detached garage. I'm just at this point kind of curious, could I put a bathroom in an attached garage, and would that then turn it into a bathhouse?
Yeah, I'm not sure the answer to that. I wouldn't think so, but you know, that's not what we're dealing with here. It's
right, understand.
Garage, and they are adding a bath. It was the application was for a bathhouse, basically.
Do we know the construction of this building?
Oh,
What
when it was constructed?
What type of construction it is? Wood? What is it?
Oh, I don't know.
And if we were to approve the variance, then you will go ahead and give them a permit on that, or you're going to have to see plans and so on and so forth?
No, if the variance is granted, then yeah, he's going to just have to go through the regular permitting process for the bathroom. But yeah, that could not move forward until the variance was granted.
But it's in an existing building, though.
Yeah, it still requires a plumbing permit.
I understand that.
But we don't know if this was permitted in the first place.
Well, that would be part of that would be part of the permit review.
Any other questions from the board?
Are there?
Okay.
I have a question. Are there any specifications for a bathroom as to what kind of structure you can put it in? Or it can be a shed, any kind of shed?
I'm sure there are building code requirements. The code just speaks to a bathhouse, which in that case, that is defined in the code. But basically, yeah, it's a bathroom that serves a pool area.
Okay.
A detached building.
Okay, thank you.
Would we be calling this a bathhouse if they did not have a pool?
You know, I wouldn't think so. But, well, I guess, I mean, it would be a detached building with a bathroom.
And I can maybe speak to that too, because I think we're focusing in on bathhouse, but as Louis read the code, it says storage structures, outdoor shelters, sheds, bathhouses, and similar structures shall not exceed 200 square feet in a residential district. So I think that even if there wasn't a bathroom in it and it wasn't considered a bathhouse, it still would not be able to exceed the 200 square feet as an accessory structure on the property. And detached garages are specifically, are in the next sections, it addresses detached garages. So that kind of, even though it was a hypothetical, Ms. Turner, that kind of talks about that. If you put a bathroom in a detached garage, then does that make it a bathhouse? Not necessarily, because it's specifically called out within the code. So I think this is just talking about, it's lumping a select type of structure together as an accessory structure that can't exceed the 200 square feet.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
With that clarification, we cannot pass it as a variance.
Go ahead.
Just a question for staff. Again, if the variance was approved and if during the permitting process, they found out that the existing structure was not previously permitted, what would happen at that point?
Well, it depends on when it was built. You know, if it was a structure that was recently built without a permit, I think there could be action taken on that. It does not meet the setbacks for a storage structure or a bathhouse. But, you know, with the granting of the variance, that would make the location legal. But again, you know, we don't know if that's assuming that it was built, it was permitted properly.
So then, in picking up on that, so if we're understanding things correctly, as Ms. Rich said, if we were to grant this variance, then they could move forward with the permitting. And if in the permitting, it was determined that there were missing in the, you know, the application process to permit for the plumbing and so on, and then it's determined that this building, the structure itself was not properly permitted, then the homeowner would have to address the building itself before he could even move forward with his original intent of plumbing, correct?
Yeah, that would all be handled through the permitting process. The variance would really just address the setbacks.
At the same time, it's a time limit, isn't it? How far back you can go? It's grandfathered in, we can say? If it's 15, 20 years?
It would just be a building that predated zoning, the zoning
Which
setback
means-
requirements.
Which means you're gonna have to give them the permit if we approve it.
It depends on when it was built.
Let's say it was 15, 20 years ago and it's over the period that the city can go back, as we call it grandfathered in. Then if we pass this, you give them a permit and he's all set, correct?
Yes, that assumes I'm speaking of zoning setbacks. There's still building code requirements that have to be met, and that would be looked at the building permitting process. But yeah, you are essentially correct. If it was built prior to those setback requirements, then yeah, then it's legal per zoning.
Go on, Mike.
As I read this code requirements, we should not even be making a consideration on a variance while it's not meeting the code, period. So I don't even understand why we're having the discussion. I understand it's been built already, but it doesn't meet code. And there are many things.
Or we don't know it does, if it does or not. It's like we're putting, you know.
Well, it says here, the code requirement is it shall not exceed 200 square feet. We've been told it's 400, so it doesn't meet code.
Well, that would depend on when the structure was built and when the code went into place, as far as that section of the ordinance is concerned. It could be a legally non-conforming structure.
So if the board pleases, we could ask Joseph himself if he knows. You want to ask him? I'm asking the board. You guys want to?
Yes, I mean, that's where I believe we had asked the applicant before, and you know, Mr. Budsco, excuse me, if you do know when the structure was built and if it was properly permitted, and was this information brought to you when you were working with the city on this application?
Joseph, you still there?
No, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So, you know, let's see, I'm on the county tax website here. This building was put in June of 2001, June 7th, 2001. And it's got a permit number here with it right on the county tax website.
What is that number, sir?
Excuse me?
What is the number?
The number says 001226.
Does that sound good to you, Louis?
I would have to do additional research. I mean, we were looking at, I think this is coming as a variance because of it's being considered a bathhouse. I'm not sure. We would really have to look to see how that original structure was permitted. That's all I can say. Is it's really just, this came for a variance because of because it was requested to be called or converted to a bathhouse. So yeah, I think basically we need to do additional research.
Would we consider?
Years old, right?
Can we ask for a continuance on this pending specifics?
Yeah, that's going to be up to the applicant. So you can certainly ask if the applicant would like to continue and gather some additional information prior to the next meeting. But it's at the applicant's discretion whether or not they want to continue or whether or not they want to vote this evening.
Okay, then final question for staff. Louis, no matter what, whether it was permitted or it's over 20 years old, whatever the case is, and he wants to put 200 square feet in there of a bathhouse and wants to leave the rest of it as storage, do you have a problem permitting that? As far as the variance on question is concerned.
Yeah, under the current rules, the city would not allow a 200 square foot bathhouse with over 200 square foot of storage. You know, that it's all considered storage and bathhouse. I think it all hinges on when this building was built and how it was permitted. But yeah, you could not build a new structure like that with 200 square foot of bathhouse and 200 square feet of something else.
It's his
privilege. Wait and find out.
Yeah, I think if we move forward with this, we would be doing the homeowner a disservice on voting on something that we do not know the status of the structure in question to begin with.
I tend to agree. So, Joseph.
Yes.
Would you like to have your vote taken tonight, or would you like some time, perhaps next month or the month after, to try this again after getting with the city and clarifying all the things that you said were inaccurate and so on?
My question would be, if I decide to do it tonight and it's voted no, am I in the same situation if I come back with
no,
whatever it's called, appeal?
Erica, would you explain that process to him?
Well, you have the option if they vote no, and you'd like to appeal, you have the option to appeal the decision to the circuit court. If you don't choose to appeal, but you want to come back with a different variance request, you can certainly come back with a different variance request to the board. But if you're going to come back with the same variance request with the same information, it's, the result is not going to change. So really your options are, you can have it continued to get the additional information so that the board has more evidence to base their decision on. And you can work with the city on that, or you can ask for a vote this evening and take your chances on how it's going to go one way or the other.
Okay, so time is of an essence of me right now. I mean, I'm getting ready to have surgery. I'm ready to go on this thing right now. If I don't do it soon, then I'm not going to be able to do it probably for the rest of the year. And I think I just need the vote. And if the problem is that I offer to just keep the bathhouse portion separate from the rest, it seems like some of the members don't like that. I don't mind making the whole entire 400 feet of bathhouse. I thought that would be a good gesture for me to try to keep the bathhouse, under the square footage allowed.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I guess we're going to proceed. Is there any more question or comment from the board?
Questions of who? I didn't hear what you said, Chris.
Do you have any questions, Mike?
I do. Well, oh, you mean for Joseph?
For anyone at all? Any comments? What do you got?
Well, I have here under background, it has the applicant, it's a variance to reduce a minimum side yard. And that's not what we'd be voting on. So everything that's in here is not correct.
Okay. Mr. Burris, any comments, questions?
Yes, I agree with Mike. The variance supposedly is given already. Why are we going for a variance? And we're not going, if we have any jurisdiction, whether he can put a bathhouse 200 square feet of a 416 square foot building. I think that's got to be the question rather than a variance.
This completely, I agree with you, Mr. Morris. This has to be a variance for a bathhouse, for an existing structure that they want to convert to a bathhouse, rather than, because here it has that the septic system is blocking it because of a slope of the property. I mean, all of that is incorrect. So this is all unfortunately bogus variance.
I think would be. I don't think the owner understands what the specifics are here.
Correct.
Maybe is confused on what we're talking about. I understand his situation about surgery and all that, but I know we can't make any suggestions. On the other hand, to go for a variance that's already there, it doesn't make sense.
Joanne, what do you have to say?
The application of the applicant does only have for the requested variance, the size variance of the bathhouse into the paperwork that I'm looking at.
Thank you.
Where is that?
The application that was submitted, it's kind of midway through my packet.
Yeah, but the first line under general information states application for variance to construct. Okay, it's
So the actual application, Board of Adjustment application, it starts with City of Tarpon Springs, property owner, applicant, and then you scroll down after the property location and it has requested action. The only thing that's checked is to the right where it says other size variance for bathhouse. So I would say, motion to table till next month to have the staff relook at how they handled this initial application.
So do we have a second to that motion?
I agree with that. Second.
So how about that, Erica? We actually as a board just move this so we can get more information.
I mean, there is a motion and a second on the table. However, I would advise that the application that the applicant put out, first of all, it's the applicant's decision whether or not they want to move forward or not. Second of all, the application, while the box is checked that says other and it says a size variance, if you look in the described request, it says a requesting a variance to use the space of the building in my backyard, approximately 400 square feet, as a bathhouse, which would allow me to add plumbing. And it doesn't speak to the side setback at all. So
right, that's what I'm saying.
So I think that tabling it is not necessarily the issue. I think the issue is whether or not the size variance is being voted on tonight. So then I think with that information, we should ask the applicant, since they only requested the size variance and not the side setback variance, if he would like to move forward with the size variance and now being able to add his plumbing, considering it a bathhouse. I mean, I don't disagree. I think that there needs to be more information for you all to consider, but ultimately that's going to be left up to the applicant.
I agree.
So before we go to Joseph, can we ask Louis, so for a size variance, would he be able to get that through the city?
Yeah, I mean, I think our concern is the same that, you know, however that structure was permitted, it exceeds by double the 200 square foot minimum or maximum size for a bathhouse. So
Really, you hit it all the way down.
that would be our conclusion with that. As far as that goes, that would be our finding.
But we could,
And can I ask a clarifying question, Louis? Since bathhouse is one of the descriptors in the section of the code, but the other is shed or basically another structure on the property, how does staff feel that the changing of it from a shed or otherwise detached structure and adding plumbing to make it a bathhouse that is what's causing the issue with the exceeding the 200 square foot requirement?
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I'm not sure how that building, and that's why I think it would be good for us to be able to look into how that building was originally permitted. You know, it's definitely not a detached garage. But yeah, I mean, it falls under I mean, they're all treated the same, storage structures, right. Bathhouses, and similar structures. But yeah, I think this came as a variance because of the permit request to add plumbing and call it a bathhouse.
Well, here's, if I may, because I believe the applicant had looked at the Pinellas County property appraiser. This is in our packet, which is page 2 of the property tax page. And I know this isn't the most formal way of doing it, but this page, if y'all can see it, yes. The one that has the aerial of the property, and it does have that parcel, that number that he had read, and the description is shed, and the date is something like June 2001. So it is permitted as a shed in 2001.
So I think that we can agree that that's accurate. What the man said was accurate. I mean, yes. I personally have no intention moving forward with this project, but what are we voting on? Are we voting on a size variance, or are we giving him a rear yard setback? He seemed to think that there was no rear yard setback involved, and he thought that was totally inaccurate, and he was saying a mistake on that. I don't know.
Which is understandable because he has a permitted structure.
Right. So in my view, he should be allowed to do what he wants, but what are we going to do? Are we going to move forward, or are we going to?
Legally speaking, the application is for the size variance only. So I would suggest, unless, and Mr. The applicant, I'm just going to butcher your last name, I'm so sorry. The applicant has said that he's not seeking the side yard variance. So if the applicant can agree that that's all he's seeking is the size variance, we can have the motion to table withdrawn, and we can make a motion on just that variance as requested.
Sir?
I make a motion to withdraw the motion for a continuance.
Well, who made the motion?
Oh, sorry, that's Miss Rich. Yeah. Apologies.
I did. I'll motion to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
And was the second, remove the second, or add a second to that?
You don't have to move to withdraw. If she just wants to withdraw it, that's fine. So the motion is withdrawn. And so then,
now we're moving on. Joseph, what are you amicable for this?
Yeah, we can withdraw the side yard setback. I absolutely do not need that. I'd like to move forward with the size variance.
Right, very good. And so now we can proceed. Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the size, S-I-Z-E, requirement.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Miss Rich.
What's the
motion is in, the motion is in the affirmative. So if you would like to grant the variance, you would vote yes. If you do not want to grant the variance, you vote no.
Okay, affirmative. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Eisner.
No.
Mr. Burris.
No.
Ms. Turner.
Yes.
Mr. Rabowski.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Good luck, sir.
And thank you for your patience, sir.
So is it a yes or a no?
That's a
It's
yes.
a yes.
Mike.
Thank you.
You're
Nice
welcome.
try.
Good luck with your surgery. Be
Thank
safe,
you.
be well. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to approval of minutes.
I will motion to approve
I
Second,
second it.
as written.
Okay, and I do believe,
Unless somebody has a correction in there that I don't know of.
right, I thought I did. I didn't highlight it, so I must have. Okay. Roll call.
Well, I think you need a second, don't you?
I got it.
We have a second. We got one.
Got it now.
Miss Rich.
Could I abstain since I wasn't at the meeting?
No, it's just approval of the minutes. It's administrative. Actually, you could all do it by a voice vote if you wanted to. So.
Yes.
however you-
Yes.
Mr.
Vote
Eisner.
six, baby. Okay, board comments, or staff comments, what do we have, staff?
thank you for the city's support and patience as we move to our virtual meeting space. Greatly appreciate your time and efforts in making this happen.
Yes, and I'd like to thank you, Kim, for reaching out to me and Patricia as well. It was my intention to actually practice this a few times, which didn't happen. I'm so sorry, but I appreciate that you offered. It was all on me, but we made it happen, so it worked. Anybody else?
Been a great experience, learning something new every day.
I'm telling you, baby, I had no idea I was gonna be able to do this. Lucky Mike.
Can I get on my boat now?
Yeah, you can go ahead in the dark.
Sail away, Mike. Okay, so if that is it, do we have a meeting scheduled for next time?
Stay safe and be healthy.
Yeah, I believe there is one variance that came in, so that's May 27th. And we'll see if we're here or there.
Okay, so there is a chance we may be back in City Hall, is that correct?
Maybe there's a chance.
I'm gonna phone it in from the boat.
Just stay tuned to Board of Commissioners meetings. They're right now meeting almost weekly, and I would stay tuned and they'll be making that decision.
Okay, Eric, I have an odd question for you just before we adjourn. Has anyone, I know this is all new, but I suppose someone could actually appeal based on the fact that sunshine laws are being sort of bastardized here, right? Is that a possibility?
I don't think so. I mean, nothing, this is a completely open public meeting. I don't think any sunshine laws have been violated.
Okay.
At all. So no, I would say not on that basis. We've been following sunshine and open record laws still. That's not gone away.
Right, I would agree. I mean, it seems like this is, you're giving people an opportunity. It just seems that there is, I guess, a chance that people show up knocking, they can't get in, right, to the meeting, but.
No, and that's not necessarily a sunshine violation, but I do see what you're saying. The governor has suspended the requirement for an in-person quorum and things like that. So there have been executive orders that have come down from the governor himself that have allowed cities to move to the virtual meeting. So it's I wouldn't say an abrogation of the statutes, but he has the power to do that, and he has done that. Once those executive orders are either expired or he repeals them, then we would have to go back to the in-person meetings. But until such time, we're not in any violation of anything.
Get it? Thank everyone, and be well. See you next
I
time.
just want you to know my puppy is running back and forth. Lord,
Good
this
night,
guy.
everybody.
I hope if
Yeah,
our
stay
next
healthy.
meeting is at the council, we get to see your puppy in person in the parking lot or something, so,
Yes.
okay, good.
So as of 9:13, we are adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Stay safe.